Okie dokie. Good evening, everybody. Tonight we are meeting with Renee Freedman. And I've known Renee now, I think about a year and a half. And as you know, I do some work coaching TED Fellows. And Renee is the person who coaches me and counsels me. And she is the one who's in charge, we're one of the co-leaders of the TED Fellows program. And she's working with about 300 TED Fellows, and I'm working with many less, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 15, typically with one or two. I got to tell you, Renee is totally amazing, and you know, she's involved in the arts, she's involved in lots of different kinds of things, philanthropic. She's a brilliant, fascinating person. Renee, you want to do a presentation, and I'm really excited to hear what you're going to talk about. I'm turning it over to you. You can go. You can do what you want now. It's all. I got to pull up that program. Can all of you see? I'm going to unmute everybody for a quick second here. Can all of you see where it says "Nourishing an Artist's Soul"? That. Oh, hold on. I didn't unmute you all. Can all of you there? Can you all see "Nourishing an Artist's Soul"? Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm going to unmute Renee. All right, Renee, the floor is yours. Take it away. Have a blast.
Great, great. So I'm really honored to be speaking with you today. And before we get started, there's a couple things. I want to bring me down a notch from what Paul said. And I don't personally work with all 300 fellows. I provide coaching services for about 219 of them. The remainders haven't taken advantage of it yet. But pretty much that's what my association with TED is. We provide mentoring and coaching services to the TED Fellows. And the group that we see most are the artists. They're the ones in need of mentoring and coaching. They can't find networks to get the kind of information and support that they need. So Paul has been gracious enough to coach a few of them, and he's very popular, by the way. So a little bit about me first is that I'm hearing impaired, which means I'm not going to hear every question, but Paul has offered to type the ones that I don't understand, so please don't let that keep you from asking questions, and when you do speak them, if you could speak slowly and clearly, a little slower than Paul was speaking just now, I would appreciate it. So we're talking about nourishing the artist, an artist's soul. And I find that when we talk about an artist's soul, it's different than when we just talk about soul. And that is because there's an absolute need for creativity, some kind of artistic expression that may not exist with others. And so today I'm going to talk about specifically the artist's soul. So I'm ready for the next slide, Paul. So as whole beings, we are often a quest to be whole. And being whole usually implies that we give attention to 4 primary domains. The physical domain, which includes our body, and we give our body attention through health practices. Then there is the mental part of us, which is the brain, and usually it's intellect and learning. Then there's the emotional domain, which is our limbic center, and that's our chemical energy. When we get triggered, we have a chemical response or reaction that shows up, whether it's positive or negative, it shows up as an emotion. And then there's the spiritual domain, which is where our soul lives. It's spiritual energy. It connects us to other people in the world. So when we talk about soul, we mostly talk about the spiritual domain. And usually this is a pretty uncomfortable conversation. I don't know how many of you have had a conversation about your soul with other people. It's one we keep quiet a lot. We don't talk about. Sometimes it's one we don't even believe in. But our spiritual domain is somehow interpreted as touchy-feely or woo-hoo, or maybe even religious. And so for today, I want to be really clear that we're referring to it as the domain where our overall spirit of who we are and can be in this world lives. So any other interpretation, let's just put it aside for this presentation. Would that be okay with you guys?
They're all nodding yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So not away. All right. So, however, though, those 4 domains we just spoke about influences the expression of our soul and how well we can live to it. So, the right hemisphere of our brain is where most of our creative processing exists. And so when we think about our soul as a creative spirit, we're going to live mostly in that right hemisphere of our brain. That's where we're going to go to. And when we need to make sense of it, we may move over to the left hemisphere. And our physical body helps us through sensory engagement, whether we create visually or through sound or through touch. That's where our physical body comes in. And our mental capacities support us through either deep emotional satisfaction. It's actually our emotional domain. Support us through deep emotional satisfaction and be able to feel like we're emotionally connected and whole. But the soul itself is not a physiological phenomenon. It's an energetic one. So I wanted to make a distinction between nourishment and self-care. We hear about self-care a lot. There's all sorts of books. You'll hear coaches tell you, we'll hear about physicians tell you to practice self-care. So when we speak of self-care, what we're really speaking about are the actions that are focused on taking care of our physiological, our emotional, and our mental well-being. Breathing, exercise, eating healthy, reading, playing, those are all self-care activities. Nourishment's different though. They're practices that take care of, or perhaps we could say feed and support our soul. The objective is that overall is for our soul to be able to lead us. If we listen and follow our soul and our expression of ourselves and our creativity, we're providing something. We're doing something bigger than us. So when we can engage in practices that allow us not to be so involved in the me conversation, but to be involved in the bigger conversation, the conversation of the whole, the conversation of the we, the conversation of purpose. So we're engaging in practices now that are feeding our soul. Some of them are meditation, being in nature, being able to create without boundaries or any limits, and saying yes to our passion. So before I go any further, I just would like you to weigh in, and I would like to know what would you like to learn today? I want to make sure that I touch it and I address it in the conversation.
If you guys want to raise your hand here, I think it would be appropriate. I'll tell you one of the things that I'm interested in, Renee, me personally, and maybe I'm speaking for others, is that this course is a lot about strategy and how to get one's art out into the world. And I'm wondering about the balance between the things you're discussing and business, commerce, sales.
Okay, I could say that easy.
All right, let's see if anybody else, does anybody else want to ask something, say something? Do you have a specific thing you're after somebody else? They're all stunned into silence. Okay.
You sure? You guys want to think about it for a minute? Okay.
Wait a minute. Ed had put his hand up. Yes, Ed.
Why did you decide to talk about souls on this discussion?
I'm sorry, what's that, Ed?
Why did she decide to talk about souls on this discussion? I mean, why did you come up with this subject?
Renee, the question is, why did you come up with this subject? And I don't know, I mean, Renee can answer, but part of the reason that I wanted to is because we're talking a lot about success and achieving one's objectives, and I want to provide some balance, and I don't want to get too far away from the reason that artists make art, and I wanted to I wanted to come back to that, and I thought that Renee's discussion would be a good vehicle. Renee, do you want to answer why you want to talk about soul?
Yes. So,
okay.
So there's two reasons. Ed, are you the one that asked the question?
Yeah, I muted Ed again, but yes, Ed is.
Okay, all right. So Paul is writing a book, and he asked me to write a chapter, and he showed me all the other chapters, and what I noticed was missing was something about the soul, about nourishing an artist's soul, the deep satisfaction knowing that you're connected. And so I suggested that. Paul liked it and said, would you also do a presentation? So that's one reason. But the other reason what I'm speaking about soul is that this is a great segue into what Paul was just saying too about the material and the money and the business piece, is that we get so wrapped around the axle about money and about surviving and business that sometimes we forget about the bigger picture, about why we're really doing this. If we were really to spend some time alone or in a retreat or reflecting, I doubt that anybody would say that the reason you're creating your art is because you want to make money. Making money happens to be something you have to do to survive, but you started to create art and make art for totally different reasons. You were drawn to it. So in everyday life, when we keep forgetting about the soul, we keep forgetting about the passion and the reason why we're actually creating, the purpose and meaning behind it, then we get more and more stuck in that money conversation. And when we can reconnect to our soul, we provide so much more positive energy in the world, and we end up attracting much more abundance. And we feel so much better, and we're connected to a bigger whole. So when we're just thinking about money, that's all we're connected to. Oh, I hope this sells. Oh, I want to show this someplace, so I'll be able to make money. But I know that for me, when I'm worried about money, very little comes in. But when I connect to why I do what I do, and a lot of that has to do with coaching and the work I do with the 10 fellows in order to help them make a bigger impact in the world, I get lots of stuff that comes into me, things I never expect, because I'm doing what my soul tells me it needs me to do. Does that bring you any satisfaction at all?
Ed, you're unmuted, Ed. You can respond if you like.
I think what you're saying is really good, and I think you make a lot of sense, so I appreciate it.
Good. Thank you, Ed. Okay, Renee.
Okay, great. And Ed, if you have any further questions, just let me know. I know you'll be on mute, but we'll have Paul unmute people every once in a while. So let's move on to the next slide. And what does our soul want? What do our souls want, really? And I don't, there's lots of books written about the soul, and I don't pay attention to them because I have a very nice relationship with my soul. So I know what it wants from me. So I'm using my personal experience to talk about this. So what I find is that it always wants to make meaning or purpose. I was working for a big corporation, and I was doing very well. I had every opportunity people wanted, every opportunity. And I was walking across the office one day, and my body stopped me, literally would not let me go on. And my soul screamed out, "You're not doing anything meaningful." And I heard it. It said, "I'm not doing anything meaningful." I was having fun. I was doing other work. I was succeeding. It wasn't meaningful. And I knew that if it wasn't going to be meaningful, I couldn't do it anymore. And I left the job, and I had a number of years where I really was searching. I didn't know, but I did know that the one thing I had to do was pay attention to that message in my soul. And so another one is expression. We're all here not to keep quiet. We're here to express ourselves. We're here to put our creative expression out there in the world. So so our souls want that. It doesn't want us to keep it hidden. No matter what other people think, it's not a matter of what others think, it's what your soul needs. Connection, to be connected to the world, to ourselves, to others. Contribution, to know we're making an impact and a difference. And totality, to be used up, to be used completely. So we're going to go through each of these. And if you have questions, I'll have Paul pause, kind of bring you up at the end of each one if there's an individual question. Is that okay, Paul?
Perfect. So you guys, as an extension of that, if you have a question or comment, raise your hand, and when it's appropriate, I'll call on you, okay?
Oh, yeah, that's good. All right. So the first one is meaning, and purpose, and purpose is our greater existence. It's our role and our contribution to the universe, or perhaps a greater spiritual network. But it's feeding into understanding our greater why. Why are we here? Why me? Why am I given these gifts and these talents? And the more we allow ourselves to get clear on our purpose and to bring the meaning we need to the world, the more confidence we have. So when we're feeling disconnected from our competence, a lot of times that means we are disconnected from the meaning or the purpose we're supposed to be serving. And so another indication of meaning, and another, I connect the two, is inspiration. So what inspires us usually points to meaning. It gives us meaning. It points to our passion and our purpose. When we're feeling passionate about something, we're feeling that we have some greater meaning and purpose that we're providing to our life or to the lives of others. So I find that although inspiration may be a side step from meaning, it really gives an indication that you're right in that window of having some meaning. And when we have meaning, it's easier to stay committed to what you're doing. Because even if, so this is something I noticed, is that a lot of times I'll start something and other people will say, "Oh, that won't work. That's not right." Well, it's not right for them, but it's right for me. And when I stick to it, I stay committed, and I allow myself to be guided by the meaning or my purpose, it always comes to fruition. Every single time. I can honestly say that. So does anybody have questions or even a story about meaning that they'd like to share? Okay. I'll take that silence as moving on, right along. So expression. Expression is one of my favorite things about the soul, is that my soul wants to create big. It doesn't necessarily mean artistic creation for me, but it means thinking creatively, putting things together. And I think that our soul really needs creative expression. And it needs to be able to express, because then when you're able to express, then you get to use yourself full up, like we talked about in Totality. And I think creative expression is your food and fuel. So when you listen to your soul, you're going to create more. You're going to stop listening to the judgment piece, and you're going to start creating in the way you want to create, which is each of us has a reason to be here. Your reason is to create the way you want to create. It's not to create the way others want you to create. When you're listening to others, you're not listening to your soul. So most of the time, our soul points us to something bigger than you. And for me, I started this work with Ted as something I do pro bono for the fellows. And I bring them together and help them collaborate so they can create something. And out of it, I've had 3 to 5 other organizations ask me to come do the same thing for them. I didn't think this was supposed to be my life's work, but it seems like my soul has decided that it's my life's work. So I think also that as you express more and you're more creative and you allow yourself to live in your full artistic energy, that you're going to find surprises along the way. But when we limit our expression, the surprises don't show up because there's boundaries around them, and it's outside of the boundaries that the expression shows up. And when we fully express ourselves, that's when we create things that other people want. They're different, they're unique, they're not like other things that have been created. So they're much easier to sell. They're much easier for people to say, oh, I really love that. Can I buy that painting or that sculpture or that dish you just threw? All right, questions?
Yeah, hold on. We have a couple of questions. I want to, Ursula, go ahead and ask your question.
My question is, if my soul says I should just be creating one-off, like not working in series, but then the art mentors recommend you work in series and that's the way to create, should I just continue to make one-offs until something starts looking like series?
So you know when you're connected to your soul and when you're not. And if making one-off, you said?
Yeah, unique pieces.
Okay, if you make unique, all right, one-off.
Or I'm sorry, Renee, but I think what she's talking about is I'm going to make a series of paintings and they should all be about dogs. Or I feel like doing a painting about a dog, and now I want to do a tree, and now I want to do a painting about domestic violence, and now I want to do a painting about politics. Should I,
okay.
which way should I go?
So whatever makes you feel alive. Aliveness is a good sign that you're following your soul. So if somebody says, oh, you should paint about this, and it doesn't make you feel alive and connected to what you're supposed to be doing, then don't do it. No matter what, don't do it. If you feel like you have to do it for some other reason that you can't figure out, maybe that's your soul talking to you. But if it's just because somebody else told you, this is the interesting thing. People don't know what's best for us. They want to think they do, but they don't. We know what's best for us. Our soul knows what's best for us. So when we can be in alignment, now I'm not telling you to go broke. I'm absolutely not doing that. But I am saying make sure you give your attention to what feeds you, which makes you feel alive and which makes you feel like you're serving some purpose other than just your pocketbook. Because when we serve our pocketbook, it's only our pocketbook. But when we serve our greater purpose, our pocketbook can be included in that. Does that help you?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hey, for the record, I don't have a problem with what Renee's saying. Okay. Go ahead.
Anyone else?
Not right now.
Okay. All right. So now let's talk about connection. So feeling connected or disconnected is the greatest indication we have of whether or not we are following our soul's need, our soul's desire. So when we feel connected, we know everything's going right. We're attracting people. We're selling our art. We're doing exactly what we want to do. Our relationships are even flourishing. But when we're disconnected, none of this stuff is working for us. And mostly it's because we're not connected to our soul and what it needs. So we're connected to our soul. We're connected to the world. We're connected to ourselves. We're connected to others, whether it's a similar purpose or beneficiaries of your creativity or your family. But there's all sorts of connections. And when we feel disconnected, it's because we're not listening well. And something's out of whack. So when you're disconnected to your soul, when you're connected to your soul, you're also connected to your art and your processes. And each of you have processes and have an artistic expression that's yours. So when you feel that you're connected to it, you're connected to everything. And when you're not connected, you feel disconnected, you're going to notice other things feel off. So it's a good check-in point. Any questions there? Okay.
Herb has a question. Hold on. Herb, go ahead. Herb.
Yeah, hi.
Herb.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't completely understand TED Fellows. What is a TED Fellow?
Oh, a TED Fellow, there's an organization named TED, and they have a fellow program. They are all about their ideas worth sharing. They have TED Talks online, and their ideas are about things that make the world a better place. It could be technology, entertainment, design, education, art. And so they decided that their talks were mostly geared to successful people, 50s, late 40s, 60s. And they realized they weren't putting enough energy in the world in the younger ages, the 20s, the 30s, even the early 40s. So they designed a TED Fellows program in order to do so. And they select 20 to 40 people each year in various areas of study or work that are making something that will make the world a better place. And they call them fellows.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So you can go to TED.com. You could see some talks. You could see the program. They have some lovely artists as fellows, really inspiring work.
True.
Great. So this was a great example of a conversation about connection. It's connecting you to something bigger, maybe something that might be able to inspire you or bring your interest. Or Paul must have you muted.
What happened? Wait. I'm not muted. Are you muted? No, we're all good. Keep going.
Okay. All right, let's go to the contribution. So contribution is about making a difference. It's about what's impacting, what's shifting, what can happen now because you're really ready to give yourself over to your soul. It's about putting beauty in the world. It's about making available what you're creating so you can put beauty in other people's lives, that you can bring a flow. So in our world, what happens is that energy flows, and when it's stopped, we're not contributing the way we need to contribute, the way that our soul could fly. So when we talk about money, so when we create from our souls of full expression, we're also unleashing the flow that will bring whatever value back to you somebody sees in your art. All right. Any question about contribution? You know, we all have a natural desire to contribute, to do something important, and you get to do so through your art. And isn't that beautiful? We need more art in the world for sure. All right, totality. And when I talk about totality, it's about really being used fully. It's being able to express yourself to the maximum ability that you have. I think that one of the people that expressed herself pretty fully was Mother Teresa. And I think that in her art, Georgia O'Keeffe was expressing herself fully. She's a great example of somebody that disconnected from material everyday life and went and connected to a place where her soul could fly. So she's, I think, an example of being used up. She painted, she created beautiful pieces of art. So all of your soul needs some help from from 4 domains in order to be used fully. And we discussed a lot of that support earlier when I talked about the domains. So it's really important for us to understand that you're not disconnecting yourself from being a whole being, but what you're doing is you're using them as support systems for your soul, instead of your soul as a support system for the other domains. Although your health will improve, your relationships will improve when you give yourself, you stay more connected to your soul. Because when we're total and we're using it all up, we are serving a greater good. We're not serving ourselves, so to speak. We're serving the greater good. Okay, so any questions about this section at all before we move to the next one?
I think we're good.
What?
We are good.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about what nourishment looks like. So I have 5 areas that I think nourishes your soul more than any 5. And one of them is listening. Another one is being in a supportive environment. Another is movement, kinesthetic, emotional and sensory engagement, and spiritual practices. And I think these all live in mostly live in a creative domain, with maybe the exception of listening. They most easily are accessible by people that live in a creative world all the time. So, listening. So when we listen, we're observing. We could be visually listening, we could be reflecting inside, but we're observing how we're being, and we're observing what's working for us and what's not. And we get an awareness of what matters, what connects us and what disconnects us. And I think that listening is probably one of the best skills we can develop, especially for nourishing our soul, and especially for being an artist and being able to fully create and express your creativity. And then there's inspiration. What inspires us, what throws us off the horse? We know this when we listen, when we pay attention. So listening is really a form of paying attention. And affirmation is our inner knowing that we're paying attention and that we are taking care of what we need to take care of. And then the 4th one is resonance. It's where you feel connected and disconnected. So we could be talking to somebody and we know that what they want for us is not right for us. And that's an example of resonance. When we're not resonating with somebody, we'll want to end the conversation and go someplace else. And I recommend you do that. Because otherwise you're going to be spending time something that doesn't resonate and doesn't inspire you and doesn't take care of your soul. So in listening, when we listen, it supports all the elements we talked about just before this: meaning, connection, contribution, totality, expression. So, does any of you have listening practices that really help you stay connected to your soul? I'd be interested to hear what they are if you do.
I don't have any listening practices, and I could probably use some. Let me turn the question around, Renee.
I will. I'll be glad to share.
Do you have listening practices, and what does that mean, and what do you do?
I do. So I know that I'm passionate about photography and nature and gardening. So I go and I connect, I engage in those activities. And when I do, I quiet down and I get connected with everything else that matters. So things just pop up. And I know people that meditate, I know people that take walks, I know people that make an altar and they sit in front of it. They may sit in a church or a temple, not because of the religious aspect, because of the spiritual aspect. They may go looking. So Paul and I recently went to the Art Institute in Chicago, took a walk around. And for me, that was a very good place to listen, because I could pay attention and I could hear inside what pieces of art moved me and what didn't. And it doesn't matter if it's your modality or not, you're going to get the message loud and clear about, it could be shade, it could be form, it could be color. So when you're listening for all sorts of things, not just what you think you have to listen for. And you'll get the message. Any questions?
Ursula has another question that I like. Go ahead, Ursula.
And I think they're answering it kind of from another end, was how do I know what the greater good is so I can support it in full? Well, how do I identify that? And I think what I'm hearing is that I need to listen and figure out what is going to calm me, and that will connect me to the greater good.
Exactly. So when I first started out in my career, I was working, I was like 7 fields removed from my path of what I ended up doing. And I never ever thought, if somebody would say to me, I create collaborative processes so people can put meaningful work out of the world and make a difference, I would say, you're full of it. I would. I thought I was going to be a psychologist and just work with people. And then I thought I was going to be a corporate new business developer. But every time I listened, you know, if something went off center, I paid attention. I paid attention when things weren't working. And I stopped blaming myself. I think it was the most important thing. I stopped saying, oh, you're not good at this. You're not, you know, you have to learn this. You have to work harder. What I started realizing is if things were supposed to work out the way I thought they were going to, they would have. And that I must not be on my path. So I would listen. And I would take the next step, go off course a little bit. I've worked in 13 different business sectors. And I know that I'm in the right one now. I know that I'm doing the right thing. So the more you listen and the more you pay attention, so I was going to say this at the end, but one of my favorite books, and I think the book that really made me start to pay attention to the soul story, is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. They have artist states in there where you go engage in what you really love. And when you do that, you could feel your passion for it. You could feel your interest. You could feel alive. And you know that those are the right directions to go in. But when you're bored, you're feeling less than, you're unhappy, and especially depression, you know, that's anger in there. Telling you you're not walking the path. You're not walking your soul's path.
Cool. Pam has a question too. Pam, go ahead.
But before we move to her, Ursula, did that answer what you wanted to know?
Ursula, you're not muted. If you want to go ahead and do.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. All right. I'm ready for the next question.
Okay, Pam.
Okay. Hi, Renee. Thank you. I really like what you're saying. I have more probably of a comment.
Pam. You're breaking.
Yes, slow.
You're breaking up a little bit, and slow it down, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I have more of a comment on listening. It's something that I've recently been doing different. And what I struggle with is that usually my head and my soul aren't in alignment. What I think I should be doing and what my soul is telling me to do are two different things. And I'm learning to listen for and follow my soul more. And it's a huge change.
Yay. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's gigantic. Because I have that negative sort of shaming, judgy voice in me, and just letting that go is so huge. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Another great book, because one of the things, a great indicator that you're following your soul, so all of a sudden you get experiences of joy that you didn't have before. Mm-hmm. And joy is really, I think, an emotion of the soul, an experience, a state of the soul, I think. And there's a book I really love. It's called The Joy Diet by Martha Beck. And it's a lovely book, really lovely book with lots of great practices in there.
Nice.
Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So anything more on listening before we move?
Yeah, we have another comment. Hold on.
Okay, great.
Hi, Maria. Go ahead.
I'm enjoying your talk, and I'm with you on all of it. I mean, I feel connected to a greater purpose, but I have to say that I feel most of the time my soul tells me to be quiet and be more like a monk, and let the artwork be the discussion. But I don't really feel like I get that message from the world. I feel the message from the world is that it's important to talk and get attention and be heard. And I mean actually vocally speak. And it seems like it feels to me that if you're not willing to do that, then your message will be lost. So I don't know, that's sort of a conflict of the soul that I feel like I have, and I don't know if that's because I just haven't evolved to the point that I need to in figuring all of this out or what, but I was wondering if you had any suggestions.
So when your soul is ready, you'll be ready. So a lot of people will tell you, I don't have a website. Lots of people tell me you have to have a website. You have to have it, you have to have it. But I haven't been ready for it. My soul hasn't been ready for it because it changes how I put out what I'm doing. And I want to make sure that I don't get disconnected. Sometimes when you have to go speak about something, it makes it more intellectual and it makes it less soulful. And I know there's a way to marry the two, but you have to find it. And if you listen, you'll find it. It'll show up for you. And you can bring a lot of joy to yourself and to others when you're able to do it, when you're able to talk about it, because you'll be inviting others in. And so I'm wondering if your soul is ready to invite others in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just pay attention. It'll tell you when it's ready.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Do you want the next slide?
All right. So we're going to talk about the supportive environment now. So that's 2 slides from what's showing, Paul.
I'll get there. There we are.
All right, great. So I put beauty first because I know that beauty is a big part of creativity and expression in art. So beauty to me is someplace that you really like being, that you find it appealing, that your nervous system feels centered in, and that you feel like you could do your best creating. So it could be the beauty, it could be structure. The structure, you know, I find beautiful architecture really helps me when I get to look at it or I get to be in it, and I get more inspired to want to create something. The composition, the layout, the arrangement of wherever you're creating in, the spaciousness, is it enough room for you to create as big as you want to create, to really fully express yourself? So a lot of times we don't pay attention to our environment, we just take what we're given. And it's really important for us not to do that, but to make it our own. Even if we can't change our structure, we could often change the composition. So pay attention to whether your soul is really comfortable where you're doing your best creating. So by having a supportive environment, it supports the totality. You're feeling connected to your art, to yourself, to the world, and expression. A phone.
That's my phone.
Don't worry about it. I'll mute you. Sorry, Maria.
Okay, so let's move to movement. Now, a lot of people will argue with me that it's exercise we need, not necessarily movement, and I disagree. Exercise takes care of the health and well-being, but movement is what gets our creative juices flowing. And that, you know, it could be dance, it could be the movement of our hands, you know, conducting music. It could be touch, kinesthetic experiences. It could be physical engagement with somebody, hugging somebody. Those are the types of things I refer to when I talk about movement. And those are the things that usually want something to come after them. So some kind of creative thought, an idea, our imagination, more engagement, but they lead to other things. And exercise, a lot of times we feel tired afterwards. What we want to do is shower, get on with our day, or rest. But when we look at other forms of movement, usually what we want is more of it, or a different type of movement. So it's more generative in nature. And that's what we're looking for, is something generative, something that encourages your soul to express itself fuller. And the other thing I have under movement that I think is probably the most critical part of it is rhythm. We all have rhythms that we do well in, and we have rhythms that we don't do well in. So when our rhythm is has a barrier, or it gets restricted or off kilter, what happens is that we feel off-centered and we're not listening. We're worried about getting back on track. And so we want to pay attention to our rhythm and how we're doing with it. And that's part of listening, is listening for our rhythm. How well we do when we get tired, the energy parts of our day. So I know that there are people that work better at night. They're night owls. They don't want to do anything in the morning. They want to do other creative thinking and expressing in the evening. And I know a lot of artists like that. For me, it's morning. I'm great. I can do anything before 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, I shut down. I don't want, you know, those are the times for conversation and rest for me. So notice what your rhythm is and where your energy is high and where it's lower, because that'll dictate your rhythm. So by the movement piece supports connection, totality, and expression. So let's move to emotional and sensory engagement. So at the top of the list is passion. And passion is a full sign of emotional engagement, and it is a sign of your soul being present and that it's being listened to and it's expressing itself. It's unstoppable. Passion is unstoppable, and that means our soul is in full gear. So pay attention to your passion. So other parts that bring us emotional sensory engagement are fulfilling relationships. When we're in bad relationships with people, everything suffers, including our soul. When we feel personally satisfied, let's say we achieved something we didn't think we could achieve, we created something new, that's going to give us that's engaging ourselves emotionally, giving ourselves emotional satisfaction. And then there's affirmation. And that is saying that we're affirming that we're allowing our soul to lead, that we feel connected, and that we feel connected to our art and to our work and to the world. Because if we're not creating, allowing ourselves to create, to put it out there, then we're limiting ourselves. We're judging ourselves, and judgment doesn't help us. And when we think about money, it doesn't help us. We don't get emotional satisfaction from thinking about money. We get it from creating our art and for enjoying the fact that somebody else would like to have it. And emotional and sensory engagement, and sensory engagement, I mean allowing yourself to taste, to see, to hear, to feel, to smell. So our soul loves that. Our soul loves that full experience. So allow yourself to do that. And by doing so, this area, it supports all five areas of what the soul wants. So I don't have much more, but I do want to leave you with some spiritual practices. So before we get to them, does anybody have any questions about that last section? Or anything up to this point?
Brian has a question. Hold on. Hi, Brian. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I guess I think that that's sometimes I feel like a lot of this path kind of leads to a positive energy, which I think is really great. But I kind of like look at the artists of today, and you don't see a lot of really strong activism, or there's not that much successful angry art. And I'm wondering, is this kind of like this idea of fulfilling oneself and ending the day in the studio with positive energy, does it display
Brian, can I
problems that are outside of the artist, or is it kind of diffusing anger that maybe sometimes should be building up within artists?
Hold on, Brian. What's that, Renee?
Paul, can you type this one for me? I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, hey, Brian, make it a little easier for me. I want to type this for Renee, but I'm not, I mean, what are you asking about? I mean, what you're saying is that you don't see a lot of, what Renee is saying is fairly holistic, and what you're saying is that what you perceive as less holistic. Is that right?
I just think there's a value in anger and frustration building up over time at problems that are outside of an individual artist. And if we always find ourselves content or at peace, then we essentially are not able to be activists or have any real sway outside of ourselves.
So excellence is a judgment. It's a judgment. So when you talk about excellence, your soul doesn't know from excellence. Excellence is a judgment. It's something that our brain says whether it's excellent or not. Our soul doesn't get that. Our soul just knows if we're expressing ourselves in the way that it wants to express itself. Our soul only knows what it feels as the contribution and value and connection it makes but it doesn't know from excellence. Excellence is something we do in our brain.
What about anger? What about expressing yourself from anger as an artist? What about
Anger? Anger?
Yes.
Okay, so anger is a sure sign that we're not listening to our soul. And there's a lot of information in anger. So what happens is that if there's too much anger, we end up depressed. You know, we're not paying attention. But when we listen to our anger and we really pay attention to what we're angry about, and then we take a step that we want to take in order to listen to be satisfied, now we're listening to our soul.
Yes, but what Brian is saying, I think, is that some angry art can be useful if only to affect change.
Well, and maybe that's what his soul wants to create, is angry art. That's okay. I have not said that anger is not a good thing or is not part of it. Angry art, if that's what our soul wants to create, then create it. I mean, I think Malcolm X listened to his soul, and he was angry a lot, and he spewed a lot of dogma that some people agreed with or not, but he affected change, and that's what his soul was there for. So if this is what Brian's soul is there for, then go for it, Brian. Just make sure you don't hurt yourself or somebody in the process. I mean, physically, you don't have a reaction. But if anger is the medium for you to create art, and you feel like that's expressing your soul, then go ahead and do it.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't think I mentioned that kindness is part of the soul. It's expression. Could be any kind of expression. As long as it's from the soul and it's not, it doesn't put you in danger. All right, so let's talk about spiritual practices. So spiritual practices are things that engage and inspire your spirit. So making time for your past, to take care of your passion each day. Like for me, I have to do one passion activity each day. I told you that gardening or taking a walk outside, seeing wildlife, seeing the hummingbirds, or taking photography. Those are things I have to do a little bit each day, even if it's only 10 minutes, because they inspire my spirit. The other thing that inspires my spirit is to talk to somebody that's creating something that I'm passionate about and having that conversation. Practices that allow you to listen, and we talked about some of those: quiet activities, meditation, reflection. Journaling is a great way to do it. Taking an artist state. And then another spiritual practice are practices that allow you to access and express your passion. So I would see that would be your art. That would be just to really enjoy your art. And then the last way I define a spiritual practice is the practice that allows you to connect with something bigger than you. And so I go in that space of scariness a lot because I don't necessarily know what that is. But when I feel my soul pulling me someplace, I don't back down. I might ask for support. I might go slow, but I don't back down because I know that wherever it's taking me to someplace that's bigger than me and someplace that needs to go.
Wow. Okay.
So before we moved away, Brian, I want to ask you: do you have any more questions about the anger piece?
You're good. No, you just muted yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
No, I feel like I feel like sometimes like avoiding frustration or avoiding being upset is good, and it can be like a way of getting through life and being personally happy, but it can also, like, sometimes there is a problem that is making you upset that isn't to be solved by introspection. It's to be solved by action. Like, it's bullshit that we have to sell our work to rich people or get money through all these different means. And not a lot of artists are talking about that. That could be seen as a source for a lot of frustration that artists are going through, that we all internalize and have to deal with it ourselves, instead of reaching out to each other and say, I'm pissed, I go to bed angry, you go to bed angry for the same reason. Let's externalize that and talk about it, instead of having to all just kind of chew on it ourselves.
Yeah, I get that. You know, if you can be introspective within the frustration of the anger, you could learn a lot, and you could use it then as part of the fuel to create. And what happens is that emotion reactions such as anger lasts 90 seconds, excuse me, lasts 90 seconds. That's the chemical part of it. And so if you can actually just notice the 90 seconds that this is happening, and then step outside of it, and then use what you felt to create, I think you might have some new experiences, and you may shift how you're feeling about things. I think you may be creating something new that may be different for you, and you may have some learning around it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, so that's my presentation today. And if you want to email me any comments, questions, inquiries, please feel free to. Paul, next slide. So there's my email address. And I really want to thank all of you for being here, listening to me ramble on. And I hope I provided some value for you. And if anybody else has any questions, I think I have a minute or two that I could take another.
Sri had a question. I like his question. Sri, go ahead. Hold on. Let me find you on the list here. Go ahead and ask your question sort of slowly. Go ahead, Sri.
Yeah. Hi, Renee. Thanks for coming on. And, you know, I actively practice being spiritual in many ways of being, but within this art world community, I kind of have to read my question again, but it's basically, how do you find spiritual art dealers or gallerists when they're mostly focused on sales, but, you know, also having both qualities in them, because one needs to exist, because basically we need to sell our work. Trying to find someone who has both those qualities, because it's hard to find someone like that. You can find one or the other, and when they're overly spiritual, they have no idea about the market or really how to move work. And then if it's the other way around, they're completely all business and have no spiritual aspect. That's my question.
So just like we have social communities, we have soul communities. And so when we can find our soul community, we're going to find people that appreciate and want what they're creating. And the more you listen to your soul, especially in relationships and connections and networks you have, the more you're going to find that community. But it takes some time. And the more that you allow your soul to express itself, the bigger the expression is going to be, and the more people you're going to attract and find value for. And it might take you a while. I mean, you know, we're nomads, kind of. Our souls are nomads. And it might take you a while to find the right community, but once you do, it's going to click. And you'll know it. It's going to click. And if it's not, if you find yourself struggling and having to fight and having to prove yourself, you're in the wrong community. Say thank you very much. I learned a lot from you, and I'm ready for my next one.
You know, two things. Sri, you know, we did the webinar with Gail Severin, the art dealer from Idaho. It seems to me that she has a lot of business savvy and a lot of soul. And I think you say the same thing if you listen to the webinar with Franklin Parrish. You know, I mean, I think you're right. And I think sometimes we need to pull out the more soulful aspects of people we are dealing with. You know, and I think like what Renee has talked about today is kind of, it's a pat on the back for having our inclinations in the right place, and partially it's a kick in the butt, which is the wrong term for something so soulful, but it's a kick in the butt, to, you know, to acknowledge our core and, you know, to enable us or to allow us to get in touch with our core so that we are, I don't know, more who we already are.
That's a great answer.
Process.
Nice and insightful, Paul.
I have my moments. All right, everybody. Renee, I think we should wrap this up. I think this has been, you know, exactly, you know, what I just said. You know, I mean, a lot of this resonates with me, but a lot of it encourages me to be more of what I already think I'm doing, you know, and
that's great.
I think that's really good. So, Renee, thank you very, very much. Let me unmute everybody so that they can echo that.
So wait 1 minute. Paul, thank you. Thank you.
Time's the charm. Say it again, Renee. I had you muted.
Just said thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, a fabulous pleasure. I love you. Thank you. And
Bye-bye, everybody.